Peace. This is Hip Hop Construction by Zulu King L1, and today we're going to build on incarceration and education. And the reason why I wanted to build on the two is because, I was today thinking about things, and I was like, thinking about my experiences in education and my lack of interest in schools. And, I really suffer from not putting an emphasis and a focus on my education. I was more concerned with being cool and just cutting school and just doing my thing. And, as an adult right now at 36 years old, because I made those poor choices, I struggle to establish myself as an adult. So I was just thinking to myself, of all my peers, I think to myself and I say, wow, I'm doing fairly good. I make decent money. I haven't been to prison. I don't have a criminal record. Own a car, paid in full, have a nice apartment, have a beautiful wife. Life is good for the most part when you look at me compared to other individuals, and I'm grateful for that, and I thank the Almighty. But I also look at my peers and wish that they were more on par with their lives, and I wish that they were more successful. Sometimes I look at some of my friends and I wish, they could do better for themselves. And I realize that the community that we come from wasn't the best community, and just the fact that you're surviving may be a victory when it comes to just being from Huntington Station, Long Island. But what I saw as a young man was many people didn't really care to go to school. School was something they found disinteresting. School was sometimes just a way to get away from your bad situation at home. A lot of brothers and sisters that I knew had bad home situations where abusive fathers, abusive mothers, some fathers and some mothers drug addicted. When you're dealing with poverty and you don't have much, at times it's like you don't even want to be home, because sometimes some brothers and sisters don't even go home and get to eat a home cooked meal or a hot meal. Sometimes you may have hot dogs for dinner 5-6 times out of the week. You may eat scrambled eggs and rice and be lucky to have a little bit of spam or some salchichas, the little sausages put in your rice. So poverty will definitely make you feel hopeless as a youth. I've seen it struggling as my own man, as my own youth, watching my mother struggle. And thank God Almighty, she was able to put the food on the table. It may have not been the best meals, but she was able to give us a hot meal most nights. We spent some times with the oven open to heat the apartment. Typical hood stuff. And that's a struggle that will affect, the rest of your life. That poverty will make you go to school and not even want to be focused on school. You'll be in school and you'll be in another world. You'll be thinking about your problems. You'll be thinking about the drama, the stress, the anger, the frustration that your parents deal with. You'll be thinking about the divorce. You'll be thinking about, why is my life so messed up? And some kids got it made. They got 2 parents. They got a house. They got the nice cars. They got the cable television. I didn't even have cable television until the mid-90s, where, I ain't never even seen some of the Nickelodeon programming and all that as a youth. So when I went to school as a youth, these things were on my mind. School wasn't on my mind. Homework wasn't on my mind. Academic achievements was not on my mind. It was some of the pain that I was dealing with as a young man that was on my mind. So grades were always low in school for me. And for most of my friends, it was also very low. And in our discussions, I realized that there was an issue with school, and it was because many of us had issues at home. And I realized the kids that were doing good in school were the ones that had good lives at home, 2 parents at home. So what does this all lead to? This all leads to young youth making bad choices in life. Well, by the time I moved to Long Island in 1993, I was 13 years old, and I had already seen a lot of violence growing up in Brooklyn. I was already having a scarred mind, and I was immune to violence in the streets. So, moving to Long Island, I saw the same thing. 1993 was a rough time in New York. I thought it was just a rough time in New York City, but apparently when I moved to Long Island, it was the same exact thing. Shootings, killings, violence. So, as time went on, throughout my school days, I had a lot of distractions when it came to school. A lot of distractions that didn't allow me to focus on getting good grades and getting ahead. Same thing with my friends in school. That poverty was like a shadow over your back, and it was just bringing you closer and closer to failure. Not just failure from your grades, but failure for your attitude, failure for your behavior. You know, most of us that had poverty issues had behavioral issues, and also some of us didn't even have social skills and how to speak, how to speak correctly to adults. You know, we didn't like authority. So when you're in school and you can't deal with authority, you don't listen to your teachers. Chances are, when you're in the hood, you ain't gonna listen to the authority in the streets. You ain't gonna listen to your parents at home. You ain't gonna listen to your parents when they're trying to tell you to go to school or whatever. And you ain't gonna listen to the police officer when he's asking you, hey, little man, shouldn't you be in school? You're gonna probably curse the police officer out, and try to run on him. This is what goes on for many of my friends that we grew up with, and many Black and Latino communities can relate to that. So, failing grades and poverty at home, and now it's like, all right, as you start to grow older, I noticed that kids in my school, even as, when we were in middle school, junior high school, kids were already starting to sell weed as a way to get income. When I was young, kids wanted the starter jackets, and they was like, yeah, my mom couldn't get me a starter jacket, so I got to sell this little bit of weed to get my starter jacket. Kids wanted fresh clothes. Kids wanted the Carl Kanai. Kids wanted the Polo. Kids wanted name brand clothing, Tommy Hilfiger, things of that such. And we couldn't afford it because, maybe your parents could afford the bootleg shirts out in Brooklyn, the ones that came in a bag for $10. Man, I had about 2 dozen of the fake Carl Kanai shirts, a dozen Tommy Hilfiger fake shirts, fake polo shirts. Remember back in the day, they used to check the tag. When Biggie Smalls said that was real. In Brooklyn, Long Island, brothers were really running up on you and checking the tag of your shirt. And if that shit didn't say, Carl Kanai or Polo or whatever the shirt said on the front, man, you would get blasted. People will make fun of you. And I think of how silly it is now as I'm an adult. And I'm like, man, dudes that were making fun of dudes for fake clothes had a fake shirt on yesterday. They were no better. And they were just as poor, if not more poor. So this is what goes on in school, right? You in school, people making fun of you because you got a free lunch. People that's making fun of you also receiving a free lunch. It's ironic when it comes to poverty. People are at the bottom. It's really crabs in the barrel. You fight to get to the top, and no one gets there. So you're getting the free lunch. People making fun of you, even if they're getting the free lunch, right? So you just don't even want to be in school. But you know what? You're in school. You're getting that free lunch. You kind of get it with pride because you're like, this might be the best meal I'm even eating. Real talk. Nice cheeseburger, some French fries. Maybe the nasty chocolate milk you could do without. Can't afford a Snapple or a soda. Most likely you probably steal it from school anyway. That's how I got down. But, you're in school, and there's all these things running through your mind. And there's also a pressure to be cool. There's a pressure to be with the in crowd, I didn't succumb to peer pressure. I really didn't care to be the coolest. I had a cool personality. I always had a lot of friends. But there's this pressure, a pressure to be the coolest you can be in a way. And a lot of my friends already, at junior high school were smoking weed when they get out of school, selling weed. And I really didn't want to participate in that because I was like, my parents were strict growing up, when I had both parents. And my mother also, didn't like the drug scene. My mother's a clean woman. She didn't drink, smoke. So I wanted to be like my mother. And the youth that I was growing up with, a lot of them were just smoking weed. A lot of them were drinking beers already, Old English. People sucking down 40s at a young age. And I really didn't want to be like that because I didn't want to be with the in crowd when it came to the drug scene and the alcohol scene. I thought that was whack. I thought people would smoke cigarettes to be cool, not because they really had stress. But what do I know? What do I know what's going through the mind of another youth? I don't go home with them. I didn't know their problems, unless we were really close. So what happens is some of these kids, they started to be in school and bring drugs to school and get caught in school with drugs. And then they will wind up getting locked up and go to juvenile detention center. They'd come out. I remember kids being taken out of school. And then, we didn't have social media back then. So we didn't know what happened to those kids. We're like, yo, where'd so-and-so go? I don't know. He got locked up. He got taken away. I heard he got put in a home. Or he's in juvie jail, So these kids come out after 6 months or go to a program or something like that. And they will come back with an even worse attitude. Now they come back, they fighting. They're still drug dealing. They talking about, getting guns, jumping people. We watch, we coming out of junior high school, we dealing with the violence every day. Someone getting jumped, someone getting attacked, someone getting robbed. So these are the things that when you're growing up in the hood, you're dealing with while you're going to school. Right? Going to school, you're trying to focus, you're trying to do something with yourself, but it's almost impossible. One of the things when I was growing up that made me not want to go to school was my little sister went to a school on the other side of the neighborhood, and I had to drop her off at this morning program at this school called Huntington Elementary, and it was in the station side of the neighborhood. We lived on the south side, and it's a bit of a distance. So our mother used to drop us off around 6:15 in the morning. Now the school thing didn't even open up till 7 o'clock. So 45 minutes we used to usually have to stay outside if the doors were locked. And sometimes in bad weather, we'd have to stay outside in the snow waiting for someone to open up the door like a janitor to feel bad for us. And at the time, I was probably 15. And my sister was probably 6, 7 years old. And after dropping her off, and staying 45 minutes out in the cold, and sometimes I had my bicycle. Most days I had my bicycle. I wouldn't want to go to school after staying 45 minutes in the cold. And then, once that opens, the program open up, and I drop her off and my little sister good, I would not want to take that 35, 45 minute ride bicycle to my high school. This is my freshman year of school. I'm like, yo, I'm about to drop out. I ain't going to school. No way I'm going to school after being up since 5:45 in the morning. Start school at 8 o'clock. Get out of school 2:15, 2:30. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to school, man. I'm freezing cold. I just been riding a bike in slushy snow. You know what I mean? Pants getting all dirty, frozen, full of mud. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to school like that. So education was falling. Education was failing for me. And I was really definitely going to be on that mentality where I was just going to fall apart and not care and just do whatever to make money. And I was going to go down that route. But I had to choose a different route. And we're going to continue in part 2. And we're going to kick further into the education, which may lead to incarceration. Peace and love. Thank you for tuning in.